making brunch. The centerpiece will be shakshuka. Now, shakshuka is the darling of brunch places all over, and it is that North African egg dish where you have that fragrant tomato pepper sauce. And I'm gonna do a riff on it. I'm gonna swap out the peppers and the tomatoes for chard and spinach, so it's a green shakshuka. And to go with that, I'm going to make sheet pan hash browns, which is a great hands-off way to make potatoes for a crowd. And to top it off, we're gonna make homemade Bloody Marys with fresh horseradish. Now, if you've never bought fresh horseradish, you've probably been reaching over it for years at the supermarket, usually next to the ginger. It looks like this, a nice big root, lasts for a while. And to make fresh horseradish, all you gotta do is trim it off. You wanna peel off that outer skin, and then just like ginger, you grate that inside. So you just wanna peel off that thick outer skin. Oh, those peels are going everywhere. I'm aiming for the bowl. I say I'm about 50% making it in the bowl. All right, come on. Ooh, you can smell it already. This stuff is potent and it makes a really spicy Bloody Mary. Now I'm just gonna use a box grater to grate it finely. You want about a quarter cup all day. And this box grater actually is a rasp style grater, which you could also use. And again, you want a quarter of a cup. It's nice and fluffy. I like using the rasp style grater for that because it makes very fine horseradish that melds nicely into the Bloody Mary mix. Now I'm gonna build it in a nice big liquid measuring cup and then put it into a pitcher. Now I'm gonna add the tomato juice. This is 3 3/4 cups tomato juice, some Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire, hardest ingredient to pronounce, but so crucial for Bloody Marys. You want 2 tablespoons of that. Now this next ingredient, kind of an oddball, fish sauce. No, it's not gonna taste fishy, but the fish sauce adds that really hearty, beefy, umami flavor that makes a good Bloody Mary, and it stands up to that horseradish. So you want a tablespoon of fish sauce. Next up, some fresh lemon juice. That's 1/4 of a cup fresh squeezed lemon juice. And now some hot mustard powder. Now this is Chinese hot mustard powder. Again, good and spicy, pairs well with that horseradish. Tablespoon of that. Last but not least, some Old Bay. Tablespoon of Old Bay. Just gonna whisk this all together. Make sure it's nice and combined. Now you can use this mix right away, add some vodka and ice, or you can let it sit for up to 24 hours. And I like it when it sits a bit. I feel like those flavors really meld. All right, into a serving bottle it goes. There we go, nice pretty bottle. Into the fridge it goes until serving time. If you've never made your own cocktail onions, you are missing out. It's easy to do, and they last for a good while in the refrigerator. Now, the hardest part is peeling the onions, because you gotta start with fresh onions, don't use frozen. So this is 12 ounces of pearl onions, and the easiest way to peel them is to dunk them in boiling water for about a minute. So I'm just gonna add them to this pot of boiling water, and you're just gonna cook them for a minute. That just helps loosen up those skins. So after you remove them from the boiling water, you just want to dunk them into ice water just for another minute. Just loosens up those skins and stops the cooking. All right, so just leave the onions in that ice water for a minute and then remove them from the ice water. Kind of got to work around those ice cubes. Like I said, this is the hardest part of making these onions. All right, so now to peel the onions, you want to use a small, sharp paring knife. What we're going to do is we're going to trim off the root end. You want to leave the root mostly intact. That'll help the onions stay together, but you want to trim off sort of the dirty bits. Trim off the tip end, and then you just slide that first outer skin off, and there you have it, peeled onion. It's not hard to do this, just a little time consuming, but man, is it worth it. All right, so back into this bowl the onions go. Now it's time to make the brine that the onions will sit in. We're gonna use the same pot. I just drained the water out of it. Here we go. To build the brine, very simple. You add 4 ounces of water, 4 ounces of distilled white vinegar, a little bit of dry vermouth, just 2 ounces of that, some sugar, it's a tablespoon of sugar, a teaspoon of crushed juniper berries, a teaspoon of coriander seeds, half a teaspoon of black peppercorns, Now it's time to add the salt, and the type of salt you use makes a difference here. You want to use canning or pickling salt or kosher salt because they will prevent that brine from getting cloudy. Now the benefit to canning and pickling salt is it measures evenly from brand to brand, and you can find it anywhere. Kosher salt also works, but the crystal sizes on kosher salt vary from brand to brand, so the amounts are different. So for pickling salt, you want to use 1.5 teaspoons. A teaspoon and a half. All right, and that's it. Now we're just gonna put this on the stove, bring it to a boil, constantly stirring to make sure that sugar and salt gets dissolved. All right, that's come to a boil. Now time to add the onions, and we're gonna cook these onions for 2 minutes. And while they cook, I'm gonna run hot water out of the tap into the canning jar. That will just prevent thermal shock when we add the hot canning liquid and prevent the glass from shattering. All right, the onions are cooked, the glass jar is warm. Time to put it all together. Now, in the bottom of the jar, I'm gonna put 2 strips of fresh lemon zest. You just wanna use a peeler, get a nice long strip of zest. Try to get just the zest, the yellow part, not any of the pith underneath. All right, nicely done in the bottom of the jar. Now, using a slotted spoon, I'm gonna take the onions, put them right in the jar. Oh. These onions taste so good. You get the lemon and that little bit of juniper berry. It is like no cocktail onion you've ever had. Actually, I put these on cheese boards too because they're that good. Now you can use a funnel to put the liquid into the jar. I've given up on funnels. I just go right into the jar from the saucepan. Oh yeah. And that's it. We're gonna let these onions stand at room temperature for about 30 minutes to cool off. Then they need to go in the fridge for at least 12 hours so they really absorb those flavors, and then they're good for 2 months.
At Cooks Illustrated, we're food nerds. That's why every recipe we develop involves research, cooking science, and rigorous testing by our team of expert test cooks. Only the highest rated recipes earn a place in our award-winning magazine. Every issue features our latest recipes and discoveries, cooking tips, and equipment and ingredient reviews. Our step-by-step photos and hand-drawn illustrations show you exactly how to succeed. So, are you ready to become the best cook you know? Subscribe to Cooks Illustrated magazine at cooksillustrated.com today.
It's time to make the hash browns, and the easiest way to do this is in the oven, but there are a few tricks you need to know. First, you gotta choose the right type of potato, a Yukon Gold, because it has a moderate amount of starch so that the potatoes get good and crisp in the oven. Now, the other thing is I'm gonna leave the skins on. Now, I scrub the dickens out of them to get all that dirt off, and I like using organic potatoes when you have a chance, but we wanna leave the skins on because they add a hearty flavor. So we're gonna use the food processor to get them nice and shredded. Sometimes you have to cut the potatoes down in size to get them to fit through that feed tube. Some of these look pretty small. I actually think they're gonna fit right in on their own. You might be a bit wide. All right, so this is 3 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes. Now we're gonna use the shredding disc of the food processor. We're just gonna let her rip. Last one. All right. You always get those few discs on top that don't go through, but that's okay. We'll just set those aside, put them in the composter. All right, oh, easiest way to shred potatoes. Now back into the bowl they go. Now in order to get these hash browns really crisp, you wanna soak these shreds of potatoes under cold water for about 5 minutes. That just really helps rinse off some of that excess starch so they get crisp and not chewy. You can see that starch coming right out of the potatoes. And getting rid of it will just ensure that the hash browns are good and crisp. All right, so we're gonna set this aside for 5 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna get the baking sheet ready. All right, so here's a nice big baking sheet, and I'm just gonna spray it with vegetable oil spray. I like doing it over the sink because it helps contain the mess. All right, this will prevent the hash browns from sticking. These potatoes have been sitting for 5 minutes, so it's time to get them out of the water. And I'm not just gonna dump the starchy water back over the potatoes. Instead, I'm gonna lift the potatoes out of the starchy water, give them a squeeze, and put them in the colander. All right, now I'm gonna drain. You can see all that starchy water. It's nice to get rid of that. Just gonna rinse and dry the bowl. And now we're gonna put the potatoes back into the bowl, but I'm gonna squeeze them extra dry using a clean kitchen towel. So take big handful of potatoes, that's about 1/3, maybe a little more, and wrap the towel around it. Then we're just gonna squeeze the heck out of it. Get all that excess moisture out. That moisture will inhibit browning in the oven. So this is how you get good, crisp hash browns. All right, dried potatoes into the bowl. All right, that's it, they're ready for the oven. The potatoes are good and dry. Now time to get them ready for the oven. We're gonna add 6 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, I don't often measure olive oil, but for this recipe, I find it's really helpful because if you add too much, they get greasy, but if you don't add enough, they don't get browned. So 6 tablespoons is the perfect amount. Next up, a teaspoon of table salt. And just a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. All right, I'm gonna toss these all together, make sure everything's nice and evenly coated and seasoned. You can also continue to do this when you put it on the sheet pan. All right, that looks pretty good. Now time to put it onto the sheet pan. And the trick is here, you don't wanna pack them down, you just really wanna spread them out. So you can see I'm just spreading them out evenly over this nice big sheet pan. All right, those are nicely spread out. And again, not packed down. They're ready for the oven, 450 degrees, middle rack, 35 minutes. And when we come back, we're gonna get started on the shakshuka. Time to make the shakshuka. Now, as I mentioned before, we're making green shakshuka. So we're using a ton of chard and spinach and a few green peas. And when I mean a ton of chard, I mean 2 pounds, which is about 4 bunches. Now, this is beautiful green chard. I like using the green chard here with the white stems because I find the red stems make the dish look a little muddy, but you could use either. Now, I've washed all this chard already. And what you wanna do is you wanna separate the stems and the leaves. And the easiest way to do that is to hold it up. Couple ways to do it. This is how I like to do it. Hold up the leaf and sort of whack at it like your knife is a sword to really cut the leaf away from the stem. All right, so I'm gonna set the stems aside. We are gonna use some of them in the dish. And now for these gorgeous big leaves, we're just gonna chop them into big pieces. So that's just cutting these leaves lengthwise, just strips. And then I'm gonna slice them crosswise into a nice chop. You don't have to worry too much about how finely you cut these leaves. They're gonna wilt down as this cooks. All right, so there are all the chard. I know it looks like a lot, but it's gonna wilt down as it cooks. All right, so I mentioned we're gonna use some of the stems. We're gonna use about a cup of the stems. So what I'm gonna do is cut off the ends. And I'm gonna cut it like a wooden onion, nice and fine. Don't worry, I'm not gonna get rid of the rest of those stems from the rest of the chard. I chop them up and I put them in the freezer and then I saute them in the morning when I make scrambled eggs. Nice way to get the vegetables in, and it's nice not to waste such a good vegetable. So I'm just cutting the stems down into more manageable pieces. Now we're just gonna chop them finely. All right, that's about a cup of chard stems. Now we're gonna add to this 1 onion. Now you want a nice large onion here. Cut the tip end, cut it in half through the root end. That's when I peel it, it's just easier. And again, you wanna chop the onion fine, about the same size as the chard stems. All right, so that's an onion and a cup of chard stems. They're all gonna go into the pot together, so might as well put them together in the bowl. All right, now it's time to get cooking. And now we're gonna use a nice big pot because that's a lot of greens that need to wilt down. You need the headroom for it. So to the pot, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're gonna heat this up over medium heat. All right, so the olive oil is shimmering. Time to add the chard stems and the onion. Now we're also gonna add the salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of table salt. Oh, that looks good. Now these are gonna take about 5 minutes to get nice and softened. All right, so while those onions and chard stems are cooking, time to focus on the spinach. Now this is a whopping 11 ounces of spinach, which sounds like a lot, and it is, but it wilts down to nothing. And believe it or not, it comes in 11-ounce packages, so that's actually pretty efficient. Now it's baby spinach, it's gonna wilt down pretty fine. Just wanna run your knife through it really quickly. Give it a quick chop. That way you won't get any stringy bits. Just like to spread the spinach out over the entire cutting board, and then just you can slowly run your knife through it from one side to the other. That's why I like big cutting boards. That looks pretty good. Back into the bowl it goes. That'll just make it easy to add it to the pot. All right, let's check on those onions. The onions and stems are looking good. They're softened, lightly browned, which is perfect. Next up, some garlic. You want about 4 cloves. I just use the garlic press it right into the pot. And some ground coriander. That's 2 teaspoons of ground coriander. And you just want to cook that for about a minute or so until it smells nice and fragrant. Oh, it smells good. All right, now all the greens go in. So in goes all the chard. I know, it looks like a lot. It'll cook down. It's a full pot, let me tell you. All the spinach. All right. That's why you need a nice big pot right there. Okay, now we're gonna crank the heat to medium-high, put the lid on, and let it cook for about 5 minutes until it wilts down. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. Oh, you can see those greens have really wilted down, and it smells incredible. All right, so turning off the heat. So now we're gonna take about a cup of this mixture and put it into a blender because we're gonna make a sauce. It's nice to have a bit of sauce and a bit of the solids in the final dish. So that's about a cup. To this, we're gonna add half a cup of chicken broth. Although if you wanted to use vegetable broth, that would work well too. Onto the blender it goes until it's nice and smooth. Oh, there we go, nice and smooth. I love this color. Oh, this color is everything. All right, so back into the pot this puree goes. Really scraping the bottom of the blender jar, trying to get every last bit out. Just gonna stir this together. Now we're gonna add a cup of frozen peas. And there's no need to thaw those peas ahead of time. They'll thaw really quickly right in the pot. And a little bit of lemon juice. That's a 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. Now it's time to poach the eggs in this mixture. But I want to point out that the eggs, once you add them to the pot, the timer's ticking. So this is a good point where you can hold off a little bit, wait for everyone to get around the table before you start cooking the eggs. It'll hold like this for about half an hour.
We'll get you right back to the video. Check out Cook's Country's newest book, The Complete Cook's Country TV Show Cookbook. Over 16 seasons and more than 600 recipes are condensed into this cookbook, jam-packed with every recipe we feature on the show, plus stories, tips, and reviews. Go on the road with Cook's Country and tour the U.S. through food. Get inspired by dishes from restaurants, regions, and chefs all over America.
All in this one convenient cookbook.
To order your copy of the Complete Cook's Country TV Show Cookbook, scan the QR code or visit cookscountry.com to continue your Cook's Country journey.
Oh, look at those! Nice and brown, especially around the edges. The edges are my favorite part. Now they're not quite done. What you want to do is we're going to flip them over. That way they'll get nice and crisp on both sides. Second side takes a lot less time. So what I'm doing is I'm using a spatula. Just going to make them easy to flip over. Oh, I love potatoes. Very German. Wasn't dinner unless there were potatoes on the table in my house. So good. All right, get the last little bit here. It's the best thing about hash browns. They're crispy on the edges, but they're nice and tender in the middle. It's that dual texture. It's okay if they get a little messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing but net. Okay, back in the oven those go, about 6 minutes, which is the perfect amount of time to poach the eggs in the shakshuka. So what you want to do, take a large spoon, and you want to make 4 indentations. We're cooking 8 eggs, 2 eggs per indentation. So you press down into the shakshuka mixture. You want to do it evenly around the pot, obviously. And the heat's off at this point. And now we're going to add the eggs to each indentation. All right, so the eggs are in the pan, and there's one trick I've learned over the years, and this isn't in the recipe, this is just my little tip, is if you spoon some of that shakshuka over the top of the whites on top, it just helps them cook a bit more evenly. So leave the yolks exposed, but just try to cover up the whites a bit. All right, that looks good. Now we're gonna season them with some salt. And a little bit of Aleppo pepper, which has a spicy, fruity flavor. You want about half a teaspoon. If you don't have Aleppo pepper in your pantry, time to pick some up because it just adds a little zing to eggs, a little fruity zing. It's just delicious. All right, those eggs are ready to cook. On goes the lid, medium-low heat. They're gonna take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I love a good runny yolk, so that's more on the 5-minute side. When we come back, it's gonna be eating time. Those hash browns, the Shakshuka will be done. We're gonna make a Bloody Mary. Those eggs have been cooking for about 5 minutes. Oh, and they're underdone, which is perfect. Just the edges of the eggs have begun to turn white. So now I'm gonna turn the heat off, leave the lid on, push it off heat, and let the eggs finish cooking on their own off heat, which takes about 2 to 4 minutes. Now let's check on those hash browns. Oh, the edges are dark, just like I like them. While they're warm, we're gonna hit them with a little more salt and pepper. All right, that looks good. We're gonna let those hash browns sit for a minute. The eggs are finishing cooking and it is time to make a Bloody Mary. Now, here's the whole Bloody Mary setup because it's brunch. You know, you gotta make it look kind of nice. You want people to come and make their own so they're fresh. So here we have a bunch of ice, a cocktail shaker. I do like my Bloody Mary shaken. So into the shaker, we're gonna put about a 1/4 cup of ice. That's about 6 of my cubes. All right, now for the vodka. You want about 1.5 ounces per glass. 1.5 ounces into the shaker on top of the ice. The ice chills it, but it also dilutes it a bit, which is nice. And now we want about 6 ounces of this very potent mixture I made with the fresh horseradish and that hot mustard. Ounce 2, 4, 6. I know, the first one of the day, I measure very carefully. By the end, I'm kind of just throwing them in the shaker willy-nilly. All right, into the shaker this goes. Now this is a foolproof shaker. It's not a Boston shaker. It is a cobbler style shaker, and it's meant for people like me who tend to make a mess. Has a nice tight lid, almost looks like a travel mug. All right. Out it goes. Ho, ho, ho. Gonna taste good through this hawthorn strainer. The smell is something. You definitely smell that horseradish. And what's a Bloody Mary without a little garnish? Now, I've seen Bloody Marys with like pieces of pizza and burgers hanging out the top, which I think are fun, but I'm gonna be a little more traditional. A little celery and a little skewer with those homemade cocktail onions, some olives, a cornichon, a little lemon. Little sip. Oh, that's gonna make finishing the Shakshuka easy. All right, back over to the eggs. They are perfect. The whites are just set, but the yolks, I can tell they're a little runny. Now to finish the Shakshuka, we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of feta over the top. It's about 1/2 cup of crumbled feta. Oh, and then we're gonna add a little bit of chopped dill. It's about 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh dill. And 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh mint. Oh. And a little fresh olive oil, about 2 tablespoons. Right over the top. Man, this is gonna taste good. All right, time to serve up. Get some nice hash browns here. Yes, I'm going for the crispy edges. Now this recipe really will serve a good 4 to 6 people. In my house, it serves 2. My husband and I made a tray of these the other day. We ate the whole thing. We just couldn't help ourselves. Especially fun if you melt a little cheese on the top, throw a little hot sauce, some green onions. That becomes its own meal. All right, now for the Shakshuka, I'm gonna put it right on top of the hash browns. Oh, I could eat my own weight in this. And now, last but not least, a little Bloody Mary. Now, look at this egg yolk. Oh, I love how it does that. It just makes its own sauce. And the hash browns soak it all up. Oh, those are my favorite flavors, the chard and spinach. With the eggs, I eat chard and spinach for breakfast most often. On special occasions, I ramp it up to this Shakshuka. A little bit of feta. Oh, with that spicy Bloody Mary with that fresh horseradish. The chard, the eggs, crispy potatoes. Oh, and these cocktail onions. This is the Brunch Champions. See you next time. If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?